Welcome back to the Brisbane Channel for the third weekly update of 2026. We're keeping you in the loop on everything from Victoria Park Stadium to shark-detecting drones, airport evacuations to new proposed developments, and plans and events from across the 5 Greater Brisbane LGAs. This video is sponsored by YB Painting Services, and I'll tell you how you can get your 10% discount later. But let's jump to the updates. Contentious as ever, this week has seen more news on the progress of attempts to stop the construction of the 63,000-seat Olympic Stadium in Victoria Park. With all options to challenge state-level cultural heritage laws crushed last year when the Queensland government passed laws that allowed 15 separate planning laws to be bypassed for Olympic infrastructure, opponents to the development took the fight to the federal government. 5 separate applications were made to put a stop to construction in Victoria Park under the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Heritage Protection Act 1984, on the basis that the Aboriginal heritage in the area was under threat of injury or desecration. One of the applications was withdrawn, but last Wednesday, the Federal Environment Minister Murray Watt revealed he had rejected one of the 4 remaining applications, which related to drilling being conducted in the initial site investigation. The minister said that he acknowledged the significance the site had to Jagera and Turrbal people, and that he had instructed his department to appoint an independent facilitator to work with the various groups to find practical solutions that would avoid harm to cultural heritage, and that would inform future decisions relating to the area. The Aggarabal elder Gudger Kerry Charlton made one of the submissions and recently shared the cultural significance of Victoria Park, which they called Barrambin.
I've likened it to like the capital of Mugginshun or the fireplace of Mugginshun, the key fireplace where everybody would come and meet, and where groups coming from north, south, east and west came together for gatherings, festivals, ceremonies, all sorts of events over all those generations.
We have a video that will take a deeper look at the situation at Victoria Park from multiple angles, but in the meantime, Gudger's full uncut interview, along with the full interviews with historian Professor Ray Kirkcove and Brisbane City Councillor Seal Chong Wah, can be viewed by channel members at insider level and above. Queensland has been rolling out a program that uses drones to spot sharks around key beaches, and 149 sharks have been detected in 6 new locations over the 4 months since the Shark Smart Drone program was extended. The new locations include Cylinder Beach on North Stradbroke Island and Tangalooma on Moreton Island. A trial of the technology that ran from 2020 to 2024 found the drones were more effective at reducing the risk of shark attacks on swimmers than shark control program nets and drumlines deployed in the same areas. Those nets and drumlines also had a much higher negative environmental impact than the drones, with 123 non-target animal species trapped in the trial period, not including non-target sharks. In September alone, as many as 12 migrating humpback whales were caught in shark nets. In 2025, the drone surveillance program spotted more than 862 sharks at the 16 monitored beaches, and 124 of those were over 2 meters in length. Now for the LGA specific updates. Early in the week, Level 4 of the Brisbane International Airport Terminal had to be evacuated when testing of an air conditioning unit produced smoke which set off the fire alarm just after 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. As many as 1,000 people were directed out to the road in front of the terminal and then back onto the footpath when fire crews arrived. They were cleared to leave by 8:35, but not before a number of departing flights had to be rescheduled. The event also led to traffic congestion throughout the airport. Airports aren't the only places that have transit lounges, and recent news highlighted a number of transit lounge upgrades for Brisbane hospitals. In this kind of setting, transit lounges provide a dedicated space for patients who are medically ready for discharge, but may be waiting for medications, discharge summaries, transport or final test results. Having a dedicated space for them allows acute beds to be turned over more quickly for emergency care. Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital will receive a major refurbishment and expansion that includes a transit lounge with 46 treatment spaces, and the Prince Charles Hospital will expand its existing transit lounge to add 24 new treatment spaces. As the state works to refresh facilities in its hospitals, you can bring new life to your home by taking advantage of the 10% discount the sponsor of this video, YB Painting, is offering. They recently won first or second place in 5 different categories of the Master Painters Australia Queensland Awards for 2025, and when you see their professionalism and the quality of their workmanship, it's no surprise. With fixed pricing and a 5-year warranty on all their work, you can be sure there'll be no unpleasant surprises. Claim your 10% discount by scanning this QR code or the link in the video description. Last Thursday night, Brisbane City Council assets including Victoria Bridge, Redcliffe Place and the Story Bridge lit up in green, white and red, the colours of the Iranian flag, in solidarity with the people of Iran after thousands of people were reportedly killed in anti-government protests over the last week or so. Iranians have expressed appreciation of the gesture, however some people may feel sceptical when the same council refused to do the same to show solidarity with the Palestinian people by lighting up city assets in the colours of the Palestinian flag, which would have been the same 3 colours in 2025. They did light it all up in white in support of the Jewish community in the wake of the Bondi attack. But to something less controversial, and the reading habits of Brisbane's population have been revealed. Of the 5.9 million physical items borrowed in 2025 from Brisbane's 33 libraries, plus 1 mobile library, the most borrowed book was We Solve Murders, a crime fiction book by English TV presenter and novelist Richard Osman. Here's the top 5 adult fiction, young adult fiction, junior fiction, and non-fiction books borrowed in 2025. If you find these updates interesting, helpful or valuable in any way, don't forget to give a thumbs up, which helps them reach more people. You can also say thanks by heading to Buy Me a Coffee or supporting the channel by becoming a member, which gets you access to extra perks. Thanks to everyone who's done any of these things, along with people who have shared videos from this channel with their family and friends. Moving now to Ipswich, home of Gout, Ash Barty, Olympian Molly O'Callaghan and Paralympian Ethan Laird, and the city is aiming to position itself as the destination of choice for elite athlete training. They've put out a 36-page brochure called City of Ipswich, Your Next High-Performance Base, promoting its training facilities that are credited for churning out so many elite athletes. The brochure features the city's wide range of sporting facilities, as well as accommodation and visitor experiences. Ipswich is hoping to leverage the 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games to secure legacy benefits from the events. Also in Ipswich, if you want to take advantage of the city-owned aquatic centres, all 4 of them will have free entry on Australia Day, the 26th of January. This has become an Ipswich tradition, with pools suspending paid entry on that day since 1997. Beyond these 4 aquatic centres, Ipswich also has a handful of water parks that are free year-round. Seems it's Ipswich's week, with 2 more updates. Firstly, Redbank Plaza Library will close on the 19th of January, when major upgrade works will begin. Changes include the addition of Ipswich's first Bub Hub internet station, where carers will be able to work while their young children play safely beside them. An additional 80 square metres of floor space will be added to the library, with a new entrance on level 3 from inside Redbank Plaza. The library will reopen on the 23rd of March. During the closure, Redbank Plains Library will open extended hours Monday to Saturday. Finally, another upgrade is planned in Ipswich, this time to Paperbark Flats, the main entry point and day-use area for the White Rock Spring Mountain Conservation Estate. There are plans to upgrade the area, including the addition of a new forecourt, a new car park, and upgrading the toilets from a drop toilet to a flushing one. The proposed changes are open to community consultation, with surveys and a pop-up event on the 21st of January. I've put a link with details in the video description. In the Redlands, the first update is about changes the Mayor has put to the Queensland Parliament relating to governance roles. But I'll be honest, it was a bit too much politics for me to wrap my head around in a way that I could explain it here, so I've just put a link to an article about it in the video description so you can read about it if that's something you're interested in. The other update for the Redlands needs a little context to start with to explain the tussle between residents and council. There's been a sharp rise in housing applications across the southern Moreton Bay Islands, with an increase of about 250% on Macleay Island in 2025 compared with the previous year. Local residents of the island say that this could translate to 250 additional households and vehicles. Residents of Macleay Island have raised concerns about the impact of this on already limited parking at the ferry terminal and say this could cause increased access challenges for people with mobility issues. As more residents compete for parking spaces at the terminal, that pushes people further up the aptly named Angina Hill, where a man was taken to hospital this last Christmas period after experiencing a medical episode while walking up the hill. Residents concerned about ferry access for people with disabilities made a complaint to the Department of Transport and Main Roads about disability discrimination after requests to the local council returned a series of rejection emails. The department said, as it is related to council infrastructure, it is not their responsibility and that council would respond in due course. But residents argue that the footpath up Angina Hill does not comply with TMR's design parameters for access to public transport. So residents have now launched a petition for an accessible TransLink bus service on the island that would connect residents with the ferry terminal as well as community services, and also allow them to avoid having to deal with Angina Hill. I've put a link in the video description to the petition, and the site it sits on has been produced by community members and outlines their concerns. Now to Moreton Bay, where a lineup of 16 free events locals can expect in the first half of 2026 has been revealed, with more yet to be announced. 2 contractors have also been engaged to deliver more events for the people of Moreton Bay, with these events among those that will be delivered by Tourism Events Moreton Bay from January to June, and these ones to be put on by Mask Events between April and June. And while we're talking events, one to be held in Logan on the 31st is a koala conservation and drone workshop. In the workshop, Watergum, the organisation that has carried out a 50-hectare thermal drone survey of Neville Laurie Reserve, will share the results of the survey with the community and showcase how drone technology is helping scientists and environmental groups protect wildlife. Attendees will also get to check out the drones up close and chat with the folk from Watergum. Spaces are limited, and I've put a link in the video description. This week's My 2 Cents is really more like your 2 cents, but I'm going to head back to do that part. See you there. In last week's update video, there was one part that stimulated the most different opinions being shared in the comments, so I thought I'd highlight some of the different ideas that were shared. It was the part about the salary of the CEOs of each city council in the region, with most of them averaging between $500,000 and $600,000 annually. I love the diversity of opinions shared in the comments section of videos on this channel, and this one's a great example. Some people said that if we want to attract the best and most qualified candidates for the job, we should offer them an attractive salary, or they'll simply take a position in the private sector. One viewer added that we need qualified people in those positions when the people elected to council may not have any relevant qualifications, and another pointed out that the Brisbane City Council CEO is in charge of a $4 billion economy, so it's no insignificant position. Others mentioned the fact that when people are struggling to make ends meet, it's not ideal that the rates that are getting harder for many people to scratch together are generating pay at levels so far from their own. But on the other hand, say some, surely it's better use of that money to have someone in the position that's able to manage it properly, rather than those rates being wasted due to poor administration. There were also comments about higher salaries combating corruption, but that's a point that I personally feel is not all that valid. People who abuse their power, take bribes, and let the dollars they can collect dictate the decisions they make don't usually do it out of need. It's more about integrity and personal character and greed. Someone who would take a bribe that is earning $100,000 a year doesn't suddenly become more upright when they're earning a higher salary, as I think greed is the primary motivator, and the wealthy are certainly not immune to that. I'm sure everyone could think of examples, but for me, some that I could list include Thomas Kwok, former joint chairman of a large Hong Kong property empire and a billionaire in his own right, convicted of bribery. Clearly, greed and the desire for influence lay behind his crimes. Bob Menendez was a US senator on a salary of around $200,000 a year. He was convicted of accepting bribes in exchange for political favors and spent 11 years in jail for it. Either he got greedy, or he really needed those gold bars and that luxury car. So you pay them more and they'll probably just want bigger bribes. That's my thoughts. But if you know something that would suggest why a higher salary may somehow lead to higher integrity or at least less chance of taking bribes or kickbacks, I'd be interested to learn how that works. In any case, I can see why those high salaries are offensive to many, especially when many are really struggling, and also when people working in roles that are so important to society, like nurses and early childhood educators, earn so little, yet contribute so much to society. But I can also see that, as one viewer said, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. We can't really complain about the council's management of our rates if we're not willing to pay someone with high-level skills to do the job. And when people with those skills could easily take roles in the corporate world that will pay very handsome amounts, should we really expect them to accept something much lower out of the goodness of their heart? I guess the big question really is, where does a salary go from being competitive to excessive or even offensive? And I think that's something that's hard to evaluate without being affected by our own values. Anyway, that's your 2 cents and some of mine on the topic. Thanks to everyone who's shared their thoughts. I don't have much more to add apart from clips of me repeatedly stuffing up, so I'll just say, see ya. Over the 4 months since the Smart Shark drone. Over the 4 months since the Smart Shark drone. Smart Shark drone. Over the 4 months since the Shark Smart. Who invented that term? Shark Smart. Queensland has been rolling out a program that uses drones to spot sharks around key beaches, and 149 sharks have been detected in 6 new locations over the 4 months since the Shark Smart drone program was extended. There's been a sharp rise in council applications across southern Moreton Bay Islands. Someone running in thongs. It's not something you see every day. All right, let me... Thanks, Mr. Thongman. All right.